everyone, and welcome to Blind Eye Live. I don't know why I have these headphones in because I can't get my monitor to work, and I don't know what to do. But it's draft season, baby. We are back. We are back. And I'm sorry I had to dip out during college football season again, because it just seems like every fall there is something that comes up involving our house needing to be worked on or something. But it's over now. Plumbing's fixed. We've got floors again. And other stuff's been done. But I'm back. And I'm excited for this year's draft. I hope y'all are too. Anybody who's watched my channel for a long time knows that's been kind of the big heart of my content. I talk about other things, but really I'm a football guy at heart. NFL drafts where college and pro football cross over, and I'm super excited to get back into this. So, with that being said, I just want to give like an overview intro. The draft order is set. Anybody who watched the Super Bowl Sunday night, I just don't want to get into whether they should have called holding. Did the guy hold? I mean, he said he did. Did it look like he held? Maybe a little. Did that ball look like it was overthrown and like him holding or not holding him would have made a difference on that play? Probably not. But that's how the Super Bowl ended. We've just got to deal with it. With that being said, the draft order is set now. And we have a 31 pick first round. If anybody, wasn't aware, the Miami Dolphins, they have lost their first round pick because of tampering with Tom Brady and Sean Payton last offseason. I forget, I have a handy little mute button on my microphone now. It's really sick. Makes muting super easy. So the Dolphins don't have their first round pick, which would have been the 21st selection. So, once again, they are without a first-round pick, despite the fact that going into this year, they had two. Theirs, and they had the 49ers, which they traded to the Broncos for Bradley Chubb. So, if you're a Dolphins fan, you're not getting a first-round pick this year. And that's okay. That's fine, Last year it was because of Tyreek Hill. This year it was because you're getting, you now have Bradley Chubb to play alongside Jalen Phillips. Honestly, you could argue this is the best young pass-rushing tandem in the league. But you would have a first-round pick still if, y'all hadn't have been, your front office owner, whoever, wasn't stupid. I'm going to say it's more the owner than the general manager there, because Stephen Ross is kind of an idiot. But, when you have the lure of being able to get Sean Payton and Tom Brady, I guess you risk it. Although, after this season, I don't give a crap, about whose offense he was in. Tom Brady's not the same guy. He's not even the same guy as he was last season. Thank goodness he's retiring. And he will stay retired. Don't buy into all this hype, all these people in the media who are saying, oh, he'll be back. Because I don't believe it. And if Brady is stupid enough to play this next year, if he's that dumb to not hang it up going into what would be his age 46 season, he's deluded because he's not going to be good. We saw a quarterback. You could give me all the crap you want about the Buccaneers, injuries, the coaching staff wasn't as good, da-da-da-da-da-da. People didn't play up to whatever. Tom Brady did not look the same regardless. He's played behind bad offensive lines on a handful of occasions now. He's played with subpar weapons. He did not have subpar weapons this year. Mike Evans fell off because Tom Brady fell off. And that's just it. Tom Brady fell off. And guess what? That doesn't hurt his legacy at all. We can all admit that Tom Brady is not an elite quarterback anymore. It's okay. That doesn't change his legacy. That doesn't change. He has put together the greatest career of any quarterback all time. Doesn't change that fact. You can accept reality. It's okay. That being said, I won't have this rant again. And the reason I'm talking a lot about the Dolphins, I'm really excited for the Dolphins' future. I think they made a great head coaching hire that was drugged through the mud by a bunch of stupid people who care about politics and social engineering over, football, the sport they cover. And over just, basic human decency. Mike McDaniel was a great hire. I mean, they, slam dunk hire. 1 year in. I mean, that's what it appears. And it's hard for me. But they're in a tough position, The concussions for Tua this year, which, to be fair, I think everybody who was involved, doctors, coaching staff, may have put. I mean, it seems like they put him in a bad position. It seems like they put him in a vulnerable position, and they need it. And it's going to seem really crappy if the Dolphins move on from him for the concussion issues that they caused, that they exacerbated. Tua's having a great season. I'm really going to be disappointed if they move on from him. Because I've been seeing rumors of Tua Tagovailoa for Lamar Jackson. And I mean, for the Dolphins, what picks are you sitting with Lamar Jackson? Because you don't have a first this year, and if I'm the Ravens, is that going to be worth it? It also depends on how good a quarterback you think Tua is and how far you think you are apart on negotiations. And if, maybe trading for a Tua and going ahead and getting some kind of extension done or just the money you're going to save with Tua at quarterback right now. Just kind of interesting. Another big storyline this offseason is the Eagles have 2 first-round picks. One of them being at pick number 10. That's going to be interesting. What did the Eagles do? They've got a bunch of veterans on that they signed on 1-year deals who have been kind of depth. They're played roles, but they're not long-term building blocks. Do they bring back Brandon Graham on a 1-year deal somehow? Do Linval Joseph, Ndamukong Suh, Robert Quinn, because I believe all of those guys are pending free agents. Because to me, the Eagles, as far as I'm concerned, the Eagles are the most attractive out of all the potential contenders going into next year. To me, the Eagles are the ring chase team. Because you can argue they got screwed out of winning a Super Bowl that they likely win because of the refs. And it wasn't just the one call. The Devontae Smith catch that was ruled not a catch is maybe the worst no-catch call I've ever seen. Like, that one's... People can complain about the Dez one all they want. The Devontae Smith one is the worst in a high-leverage game that has ever happened that I can think of. Just awful call. And that affects, like, that affects the scoreboard going into halftime. The Eagles probably end up with a touchdown instead of a field goal there. Maybe I'm wrong, but it definitely affected the game severely at that point in time. The refs made enough, and the refs kind of allowed the Chiefs' offensive line, especially, I'll say this, Andrew Wiley got away with holding the entire game. I mean, it was bad. You know, people were talking about the Eagles' defense didn't make any plays. The Eagles' defensive line didn't make any plays. They put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, on Mahomes, but there were a few times where it's like there were 3 plays where Wiley got away with holds that I think prevented a sack or prevented like a negative play rather than, you know, the eventual outcome of the play. But the Eagles are going to be, you know, a ring chaser, you know, team. We'll see if Jason Kelce comes back. They were so close, like, to winning that Super Bowl. I feel like Jason Kelce will come back for another year. You know, they've got to make decisions on James Bradbury, who, I mean, I can't imagine they're going to be able to keep him depending on, like, what the market is for James Bradbury this offseason. Personally, I think number 10, they should be going corner. Whether it's Devin Witherspoon or Joey Porter Jr., my top 2 corners at the moment in the class. I don't think that's going to change between now and draft time. Although there are guys like Christian Gonzalez, who's just got crazy tools, who I'm really high on. I just think for a team like the Eagles, Witherspoon and Joey Porter Jr. are, to me, the 2 plug-and-play, like, don't worry about it first. Like, and Witherspoon especially. He's like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson if Chauncey Gardner-Johnson could be, like, a high-end outside corner. His instincts, hitting, tackling ability, angles, like in pursuit. Witherspoon plays outside corner with the tenacity of a safety. You gotta love it. So, Eagles storylines are going to be interesting. The Chiefs as well, like, what do they do with their picks? You know, they're coming off a Super Bowl. And and the thing is, like, if you look at this Eagles, like, Super Bowl team, their secondary is going to be intact. They started 4, like, I mean, basically we're starting 4 rookies, but, like, out of, I think, their top 6 snap counts, 4 were rookies. Trent McDuffie, one of their first round picks this past season. Well, Brian Cook, I think, went in the 3rd round, started at safety next to Adderley. Or, wait, is it Adderley? No, Juan Thornhill, sorry. For some reason, even though they're different players, for whatever reason, flipped Thornhill and Adderley. Adderley plays for the Chargers. Jalen Williams. Or is it Jalen Watson? Anyway, then they've got their day 3 corners. Joshua Williams, 4th round pick, who I was really high on last year, and 7th round pick Jalen Watson out of Oklahoma State was a 7th round pick. They've got young building blocks back there. That doesn't mean they can't take secondary or someone in the secondary. I mean, you need as much depth as humanly possible, but that doesn't have to necessarily be a super high concern. You've got Nick Bolton still on his rookie deal. I think Willie Gay's got 1 more year on his rookie deal because I believe he was a 2020 draft pick. If not, they might be having to work a contract, but that shouldn't be too high. And they might be looking to extend him anyway, if they're cool with like the off the field stuff with him. Defensive line's got to be addressed. Like Frank Clark's contract's up, and Frank Clark's not been good. He's literally his entire Kansas City Chiefs career and tenure and all the money he's made has been based off of like 2 games at this point, maybe 3. And if I was a Chiefs fan, I'd be really hoping that one of our first 2 selections was on an edge guy to put across from George Karlaftis. And really at the end of the first, Karlaftis is kind of a, long-levered, like, power rusher. I say long-levered. People talk about his arm size, but he's, like, tall, long, powerful guy. I'd love to get kind of a guy who's a little more bendy, maybe, is the word. A guy like Byron Young out of Tennessee, 6'3", 250, really good. I mean, really quick first step. I think he'd be a good compliment. B.J. Ojolari out of LSU would be a really good compliment that you should be able to get at 31. I think those 2 guys would be great, or would be great to kind of pair across from Karlaftis. People could talk receiver, but I do believe like Sky Moore's going to have a bigger role in year 2. They've got Kadarius Toney. We'll see, and this also depends on like what they do with Juju Smith-Schuster and Mecole Hardman, who are both, free agents. Of course, you got MVS under contract. You have your guys on rookie deals under contract, and their other receiver Watson, the receiver they brought in, they seem to like him, but once again, if Hardman's gone and Juju's gone, like say they let both of them walk, could be interesting to see them go for like another just track star speed guy like Jalen Hyatt with that pick. Jalen Hyatt seems like he's the favorite to be the fastest receiver in this draft. From watching everybody, it wouldn't shock me. Of course, I've got a Tennessee T next to me, so you've already heard me bring up 2 Tennessee guys. Like, well, this guy's biased. It's like, well, Hyatt's not my receiver 1, and I'm not even sure if he's really the best receiver coming out of Tennessee this year. Like, is he really a better overall receiver than Cedric Tillman? Probably not. But he's fast. And he's skilled. Like, he showed a lot of stuff this season, but it is a weird scheme. It's a hard scheme to scout. But the tools are there. And the market improvement these are between 2021 and 2022. It's not just the scheme, because the scheme was in place in 2021. They wanted him to go big in 2021, and that didn't happen. Cedric Tillman did, though. And Tillman started off the year looking good before the injury. If I'm the Chiefs, though, now Tillman would be an interesting guy, but I'm not seeing him in first and even second round discussions right now. I'm seeing him outside of a lot of people's top 10s, although I think that's kind of wild because he was a top 5 receiver. Like, he was a lot of people had him in their top 25s or at the very least top 32s before he got hurt. And he's had plenty of time to recover. I don't think it's going to affect him by the time we get to the off-season programs for teams after the draft. It's like, I feel like he's probably, and I think he's going to be a full participant in the combine. So we'll see what his athleticism is. That's one of the things with Tillman is some people are like, well, what's his top-end speed? He plays like he's pretty fast for a guy who's like 6'3", 215. He's big, he's strong. Like, you look at his tape, his body usage, like how he shields the ball, he knows exactly he's great at timing, like going for the ball, high pointing the ball. He's physical after the catch. He's got more wiggle than a lot of guys that size have after the catch. Like he's been effective in the screen game. Like actually one of my best comps for Tillman is Alshon Jeffrey. It's the guy he most reminds me of. Former South Carolina receiver who spent most of his career with the Eagles and the Bears. And was kind of the same kind of guy. Like, I think Jeffrey ran like a 4.5, low 4.5s, if not like a 4.5 flat. But he kind of played a little faster than that. He was good in the screen game, like physical after the catch, breaks, like with break tackles. Tillman's that kind of receiver to me. And Jeffrey was a second round pick. It's like I'm kind of right now I'm expecting Tillman to go day 2. It would really shock me if he got out of round 2 based on my eval. And this draft is kind of lacking high-end guys with that kind of size. If you look at most people's like top 10 lists that I've been seeing, you've got Quentin Johnston, who's 6'4", like 212. Track speed, like I get why some people have him as wide receiver number 1. He's arguably the highest upside receiver in this draft. We'll see what he does at the combine. From just an athletic testing perspective, I like the combine numbers. It's like that. It's good data, and I'm not for this. It's really annoying, like the recent talk from like Troy Vincent and Damari Smith. Like Troy Vincent calling it like a modern day slave auction. No, it's not. And it would have been from its inception. Like, if that was the case, like people would have thought about this from the inception. No, it's not. It's a data mining ground. Like, that's what it is. Like, I just think that's silly. But anyway, sorry, that thought popped into my head because I started talking about the combine. I'd read that this weekend. I'm just like, or last weekend. I'm just like, what? But Quentin Johnston, I get like at the high end, and he's long, but he's not physical like Tillman. Like that's the one knock on Johnston. Johnston doesn't play to his size. Like Randy Moss was rail skinny at 6'4", maybe even 6'5", but Moss used his height, used his athleticism, and he's more physical than he was given credit for as a receiver, especially at the catch point. Or than a lot of people would probably give him credit for because of his like how skinny he was. Which Johnston's long and kind of lanky, kind of skinny. But I mean, he's still like 212, 215 at 6'4". But he doesn't high point the ball as much as you would expect on tape downfield. He lets the ball come to him a little more than you would expect. He doesn't use his size particularly. Like, it's not like he understands how to use his size the way a guy like Tillman does. To me, Tillman's the best physical receiver in this draft class. People can miss me with Rashee Rice. That guy is extremely overrated. If you're taking him before the 5th, and arguably, if you're taking him in the 5th round, like, I'm just not a fan of Rashee Rice's, like, game at all. And he didn't look great at the Senior Bowl. And if you look on tape, I've seen people talk up his run after catch ability, fluidness. I don't see that. I see a guy he plays right now like Marvin Jones does right now. There's no separation. It's just he goes up and he just knows how to use his body. And even then, Rashee Rice doesn't know how to use his body as well as Marvin Jones does. like, I don't want to draft a young receiver who's already playing like the grizzled vet who's hanging on. In that, like, I don't want his game to look exactly like that. I like the effort from that, but I want more than that. Like, I don't want a guy who looks like he's barely hanging on, because that's what his college tape looks to me, or projects him to me as at the pro level. I just don't think he's going to translate. Like, and I've heard people talk about Rashee Rice like he's Cortland Sutton. He's not. So, like, once again, going through kind of like this top 10, Quentin Johnson, long, like he could be like crazy. Like, and he's not as fast as Moss, but he is fast. After that, you're the other guys kind of in that tier. You've got Jackson Smith-Njigba, who people are comping him to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't see that because his route running is nowhere near Amon-Ra St. Brown. People talk about speed. What speed? It's gonna shock me. Like like the comps to CeeDee Lamb. He's not that guy after the catch. He's not elusive. He's not as physical as Lamb. He's not as dynamic as Lamb. Period. Like, if you look at JSN's tape when he was playing with Wilson and Olave, which is basically all his tape right now, all of his usable tape, he's just running to space. Like, you see him round off routes. Like, I don't see a guy who's like Wilson and Olave. Like, he doesn't have speed, like sub 4.4 speed, like those guys do. And people talked about Wilson. They were kind of surprised he ran like the 4.3840 that he ran because, you know, he doesn't play like he's that fast. It's like, well, that's because he beats people in certain ways. That the speed's still there. It's just Olave was more the top, like the field stretcher guy. You know, he ran a 4.39. I still think if you're putting them next to each other, like on the field, like Olave plays faster. He does. And I think he's actually faster than Garrett Wilson. But those two guys, you know, were clear, you know, first round guys. Like, Olave was a clear, like, you know, top 20, top 25 player. Wilson, like, I think finished his prospect somewhere around prospect 10 for me last year. It might have been 11. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know the only guy I had ahead of him was Jameson Williams. But Jackson Smith-Njigba is not any of these guys. I think a high-end comp for him is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Personally. To me, though, like, I don't know if he's a first round receiver. And I might be nitpicking him too much. That's something I've been considering too. But I don't love his tape. And I didn't have him as the number one receiver coming into this year. Although, to be fair, my number one receiver I wouldn't draft now. And actually, I don't even think I had him number 2. Pretty sure I had him behind Jordan Addison, and I wanted to put Cedric Tillman ahead of him, but I didn't want to be a homer. So you've got Jack Smith-Njigba. He's like 6 feet tall. Maybe he's 200 pounds. But I don't see a dynamic player at that height or at that size. I don't see the dynamic. Like, I see at best, like a high-end slot receiver. That's what I see Jackson Smith-Njigba as. Who doesn't have elite speed. Like, he's not going to take the top off defenses either. Like a Jalen Hyatt or a Josh Downs. So we move on. Like, you got Jordan Addison, who's like 5'10", maybe 5'11". It's like 175 pounds, maybe 180. We'll see what he comes in at the combine. really smooth. Like, I've seen Devontae Smith comps, which, okay, I don't think he's quite as fast as Smith. I don't think he's quite as good as Smith, but he's really stinking good. To me, Addison's clearly a first-round receiver. And, like, he's super technically sound. If you've got kind of more of your athletic, physical receiver, go get your Jordan Addison to pair with him. Guy who creates separation pretty easily. I don't know. He's really smooth. I love smooth route. I love smooth route runners. And I think there's an argument that Jerome Addison, you could put him as receiver 1. He's not right now. But, and I'm kind of going off what these are like the consensus first 3 guys people talk about are these 3 guys. My actual top 2 receivers right now, I can't decide who's receiver 1. It's Zay Flowers and Josh Downs. Flowers a little bit taller, a little bit longer. I've been seeing like on Antonio Brown comps. Antonio Brown without the character issues. I'm not going to say that they're wrong. I mean, but you're putting lofty, expectations on the guy. Or at least a lofty pedigree on the guy. But Flowers is a baller. And if he was at a higher profile school than Boston College, like, look at his numbers and remember that he played at Boston College. Guy's good. I mean, like, he's really good. His ability to track the deep ball is outstanding. He's fast. We'll see how fast. If he's, like, elite fast or, like, great level. Like, is he S tier or A tier fast? With his polish and everything. And, I mean, and you know the saying, like, he's got that dog in it. Like, this dude has, like, 2 dogs in him. Like, I like Zay. But, man, I love Josh Downs. I loved him before this year. We was playing with how... If Josh Downs was healthy the whole year, Jalen Hyatt might not have won the Biletnikoff. Yeah, he's 5'9". That guy uses every inch of the 5'9". You hear people talk about a limited catch radius. That's just another way to call someone short and small. And you're saying, like, that means, like, the quarterback has a harder time getting the ball. Like, there's windows that he can't be a part of, or he can't create windows in certain situations for quarterbacks. Okay, cool. Guess what? He is so fast, so quick, and he's so good at separating that the corners typically aren't going to have that kind of issue. Or, I mean, the quarterbacks aren't going to have the issue with corners being draped all over this guy. And he does a really good job in contested catch situations. Like, he was a really good red zone receiver, not just as a separator, but like throwing up fades and him, making the play. But he creates more separation on those fades. So, like, there's different ways to make the quarterback's job easier. And if you have a really good quarterback, Downs is going to be great. Like, you watch this guy run, like, routes in the red zone, and you wonder, how did this guy not end up with, like, 25 touchdowns? He's open, like, every time. Basically. I mean, he's incredible. Like, to me, Downs is incredible, and it's really between him and Flowers, to me, for wide receiver 1. And Quentin Johnston's there, too, like, because, like, the upside, the length, like, and I get, like, the argument for, catch radius, that sort of thing. But, dude, Downs is just so smooth. So, like, and right now, that's kind of those are the names I'm hearing for, like, the top 5 receivers. The next 5, you've got in like a bunch of different orders, like Jalen Hyatt, which some people have Hyatt up higher. Hyatt just hasn't shown the polish of like a Downs or a Flowers. He was in like a weird but great scheme. He's longer than those guys. Like he's 6 foot, maybe even 6'1". I'm expecting him to be 6 foot. He's got longer arms than those guys. And he's probably, and I think he's going to end up being the fastest receiver in this class unless there's some random guy further down the board that I haven't gotten to yet that I think is going to, but like, I mean, Hyatt was a legit track guy. A lot of these, I mean, and there are a lot of guys who are, but I mean, I really think Hyatt is going to end up being like fastest receiver in this class. Maybe even the fastest player, but we'll see. But you got him at 6. Michigan State's Jaden Reed has been jumping up. Some people have been putting him in their top 10s. He's like 5'10", and he showed great downfield play at the Senior Bowl. He was awesome. But he didn't get to put that on tape a lot at Michigan State. His numbers weren't amazing this year. But he looks like a very toolsy guy. But once again, he's under 6 feet. Parker Washington out of Penn State, I really don't think there's much difference between him and Jackson Smith-Njigba, and I'd argue he's more dangerous after the catch. Although I've been seeing some people commenting to Amari Rodgers because of body type, he's like 5'11", 212. Like, he's definitely built like a running back. But he plays the position, he definitely plays, he's a better player than Amari Rodgers was. Let's just put that out there. Like, he was Penn State's #1 guy this year. Very productive. I love, like, his shiftiness. Like, his movement after the catch is really good. He's great at getting to space. I'm not expecting him to light the world on fire in the 40, but it wouldn't shock me if he was faster than Jackson Smith-Njigba. I really like him. But day 2 guy. And once again, under 6 feet tall. But he's thicker built, like he's physical, like, and he'll go up and get the ball. Like, he's not afraid of taking hits. You'll love that. But you got Tank Dell out of Houston, who's kind of an interesting player, probably going to come in at like 5'8". He's going to be really fast, but a lot of people think he's more like, a lot of people think he might not even be like Downs, Flowers fast, or maybe he's in that range, but maybe not Hyatt fast. But he's a jitterbug. I've seen some like Dante Hall comparisons. I don't think he's quite as elusive as Dante Hall. But he's elusive. He's fast. He's a good receiver. Like, out of all these like small guys who like Tutu Atwell, Calvin Austin last year out of Memphis, who I still really, really like. And you could even put Downs in there because Downs is 5'9", but I think he's a little over 5'9". And he's just shown it versus Power 5 competition. Like, but you get some of these guys. I get Tutu Atwell was a Power 5 guy, but he wasn't playing in the SEC or Big Ten. Like, the ACC is kind of weird. Lost my train of thought. Well, I mean, Downs played in the ACC. What am I talking about? Anyway, after, proving myself a fool. I like Dell a lot, but it's going to be one of those things is like, is his ceiling a gadget guy? Or is he, because like, I don't see him as like a Jalen Waddle. Which Waddle, once again, a little bit taller, a little bit longer. And Waddle in college showed a great ability to go downfield and get the ball. So I like Dell, but again, another small guy. Then you've got Tillman, and then Stanford's. Man, I'm blanking on his name. I know it's not Marvin Wilson. That was a defensive tackle at Florida State who was way overhyped, and then just plummeted on draft boards. A bunch of media people hyped him up until like the actual year he goes to the draft, and like everybody's like, "Oh wait, maybe he's not that good." Shocker. But Wilson out of Stanford didn't get a ton of targets. Everyone's talking up Tanner McKee. I'm like, this guy had talented receivers. And people can blame the offense. That's cool. I'm totally down with blaming David Shaw and his coaching staff's offense for some stuff. But I don't like Tanner McKee as a prospect. I'm just sitting here like, oh great, another 6'6" statue who doesn't really have any elite tools. That player works out great lately. He doesn't. Basically he's Davis Mills but an inch taller. And I wasn't excited about Davis Mills coming out. I wasn't. People watched the channel like 2 years ago. Me talking about it. Wasn't big on Mills. Now, he played great towards the end of the 2021 season. Should I say, he played better than anyone could have expected. And I think he earned his shot this year. And it went about like we all pretty much expected. And you could say all you want about the Texas offense was kind of there wasn't a whole lot of talent. But to some degree, I'll say this: I've seen good quarterbacks and good young quarterbacks take. The guy had Brandon Cooks. I like Nico Collins a lot. Damian Pierce was really good in the backfield. The offensive line was not perfect, but it was like his. It was not the worst line in the league. I'm sitting here stuttering. Oh man. They had stuff to work with, and when they're turning to Jeff Driscoll, that's a sign some of it's you. Let's be real. So is McKee draftable? Absolutely. But he held, to me, I don't think he elevated his team in college. I don't see him elevating a team in the pros. And to be honest, I think he'll probably more likely be a drain on his team in the pros. But he could be a solid, backup guy for a long time. Like a useful backup. But, I'm not excited about Tanner McKee. So you get a guy like Wilson who looked, another receiver, looked awesome during the showcase games. I'm trying to remember, was he at the Senior Bowl or was it Shrine Bowl? Or was he one of the guys who was at both? That was so much stuff to watch and follow a couple weeks ago. When everything... why is all that happening at once? Why does it all have to be at the same time? But Wilson looked really good. And some people might say, he's the bigger, I know some people, there's a lot of people who like him over Cedric Tillman. Tillman produced against better competition. Sure, he had, you could argue, better quarterback play, definitely in a better offense. But, I'd take Tillman right now. That doesn't mean Wilson can't be turned into a great receiver. But really, like, you're looking further down the board for bigger receivers. It seems like this is more of a small or average kind of size receiver draft, which after the last few drafts, like when you have guys like, and I say even with like, I say average size, you get guys at like 6 foot or 6'1" who are like amazing athletes, like, or guys who maybe are a little thicker built, like a Jamar Chase. It just seems like this draft is really dominated by small, speedy guys. Like, out of your top, like, say, 10 guys, like, or let's just say the top 7, or like the guys who are getting the most buzz for the first round. You've got Johnston at 6'4", and then Jackson Smith and Jigba's 6 foot and slow. Because I'm kind of predicting to be or kind of slow, or slower than people think. Jalen Hyatt's 6 foot and skinny. But then you got Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, Jaden Reed. Did I say Zay Flowers? Who are all 5'11" or under. I don't know. I think as we get closer to draft time, guys like Tillman and Wilson are going to rise because, I mean, size helps. I know I was kind of downplaying that with Downs, but Downs is so good. You just, at like everything else, he's so good at everything and so good at playing the position that you just have to be like, okay, whatever. He's not 6 feet tall or he's not 6'3". Oh, well, I'm getting what I think, or what will likely be a guy who will be at least Tyler Lockett. Because that's when I see Downs, I look at a guy and I'm like, that guy reminds me a lot of Tyler Lockett. Although so does Jaden Reed out of Michigan State. And actually, I don't know which one of them is a better, or Tyler Lockett's a better comp for. So that being said, I just spent a lot of time talking about the receivers. And this stream, like, I'm kind of getting back into it. But I'm just kind of rambling about we're going to draft season. We got, the big quarterback questions like, oh, Bryce Young, like, man, if he was 2 inches taller and, a bit heavier, or like, if we could guarantee he was like 6 foot or taller and if he was over 200 pounds, this would be a no-brainer. Should still be a no-brainer. He's quarterback 1. I look around the league and I'm seeing big quarterbacks like Josh Allen picking up injuries just as easily as everyone else. Patrick Mahomes, a thicker built quarterback, getting injured. I've seen people comparing Bryce to Kyler Murray. They're not the same player. Bryce doesn't play the position like Kyler Murray. He plays the position on it, and I would say already, like, he plays the position on a different level than Kyler Murray. I'm not. People are talking about durability concerns. Will Levis has played more injured than Bryce Young. He's been more injury prone than Bryce Young. And he's 6'3", 230. Take the better quarterback. And here's the thing. Bryce Young hasn't peaked yet either. It's not like Will Levis. And he's younger than Will Levis. People talk about Levis's upside. He's further down the developmental path. Because that's another thing. People, get caught up in, and people say it's less prevalent in the NFL than it is in the NBA. The younger a prospect is, the better. It's still kind of that way in the pros. And it shows true at the receiver position. Typically, guys who stay till their senior year of college don't perform as well at the next level. Because usually, it's like the idea is, well, these other guys had to get out of the way these younger guys had to leave, or why did it take so long for him to get on the radar? Like, a great NFL prospect is going to get on the radar quicker. Maybe, maybe not. You got late bloomers. It's not a hard, fast rule. But I do think at the quarterback position, from a developmental standpoint. The older you get, and I just know from my own personal life, the older you get, the longer it takes to pick up new things. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but it takes more effort and more time to pick up new things. Like just as a drummer, trying, like, I turned 30 yesterday. When I was 15 and taking drumming seriously, I took such a massive jump because of the time I was investing and how good I my feel and just how much I was playing, what I was doing. I spend the same amount of time now, and I don't make the same progress that I can look back and see that I made. It's harder to break bad habits that I built up because I'm self-taught. Like, Will Levis has built up more habits than Bryce Young. He's built up more bad habits. You see them on tape, and he's older. He's been doing those things longer. Can you break those? And I think it depends, and it's a little different, like, because not everybody's the same case. That doesn't mean Levis can't fix a bunch of things. Like, I mean, because everybody wants to bring up Josh Allen. Josh Allen didn't have the coaching. He didn't have the coaching Levis has had. Levis has had some good coaches at Penn State and Kentucky. And people could talk about supporting cast all they want. Will Levis has never had a supporting cast as bad as Josh Allen had in college. And I just don't think Levis is Josh Allen either. Or Justin Herbert. Like, and if I was going to compare someone in this class to Josh Allen, it's Anthony Richardson. Richardson's younger. He has way less starts than Levis. And I'd argue he has a better foundational baseline of skills. And I think he showed really good development this season. Like, in games, like, processing and learning during the game and not making the same mistake twice or not missing the same read twice. Like, you could see the process happening. I think his footwork is better than Levis's. I think there's still, like, there's definite polishing that needs to be done, but take Richardson. Because you could sit him on the bench for 2 years and he'll, if I'm not mistaken, he's like 2 years younger than Levis. You could sit him on the bench for like 2 seasons, developing him. And he'll be the same age that Will Levis is like right now. Without near as many ingrained tendencies. Levis showed way more hero ball than Richardson. You would think because of his tools and like the way some people talk about him, like Richardson probably played a bunch of hero ball and was a first read and just run for his life kind of guy. That's actually not what happened at Florida. Actually, one of the reasons I think some of his stats were down was because he did try to go through reads. He was making progressions. And he had, outside of maybe his offensive line, I would say that his supporting cast wasn't much better than Levis's at Florida this year. And unlike Will Levis, who couldn't even throw for 100 yards and threw for 3 interceptions against the Tennessee Volunteers defense that was like one of the 10 worst pass defenses in college football this past season, Anthony Richardson put up, what was it, like 500 total yards? I think he threw for more yards than Hendon Hooker in that game. Almost led them back. And that was a healthier version of the Tennessee defense than the one Kentucky played later in the season. And he didn't have near the experience. That was only like Richardson's what? 7th? 6th college start maybe? Something like that. I think he has like, what, 13 starts to his name at this point? Maybe 15? I think Levis has like 30? Or, I mean, it's something like that. I mean, should I say, Levis has like double the starts, and he's been in college for double the time that Richardson has, basically. I just... Like, I just don't see it with Levis. Like, I get it. He's got all these traits. Richardson's got better traits. He's bigger. He's faster. His arm is stronger. He's more agile. And he's not as turnover prone as Levis is. He's better at protecting the ball than Levis is. In my watching of their tape, for sure. Like, we make this mistake constantly with quarterbacks. It's the same mistake. Oh my God, that guy's got a cannon. I'm the guy who can teach him to rein that in. I'm gonna turn him into into a very accurate passer. I'm gonna fix all this stuff, and his tools are gonna turn him into the greatest thing we've ever seen. Will Levis is Jake Locker with a worse college career. That's who you're looking at. Levis is just Jake Locker. Now, that doesn't mean Richardson's some like, man, you got to nab this guy. He is hyper risky. I thought Josh Allen was super risky. But I do like some of the foundational stuff I've seen on Richardson's tape. Dude, he's got to improve at everything, for sure. One thing I've heard is like pocket sense, and I'm like maneuvering the pocket, sensing pressure. Because some people, it's like they like almost feels like they never learn it. Some guys, it seems like they just innately understand it or innately feel it. There's a lot of guys who it takes some time. Like, he doesn't have a whole lot of reps. I think some of that pressure sense can come with just time. I think it's just like, yeah, you might have a rhythm feel, but you don't have a feel for how to play drums just sitting down. Like, you play for a bit, and it's like, the more you play, like, your feel for different things and playing in different styles, your feel for playing within those styles improves. I know I'm using a lot of musical references here, but I think when it comes to feel like that, it's an apt kind of comparison there. Especially if you've ever played in like a blues style or a jazz style. And maybe you and some friends are messing around and y'all are just kind of jamming and kind of flowing together. Like kind of feeling where things are going, where someone's going, and kind of trading off, like maybe picking a spot where maybe you pick up and kind of add a little flair. As a drummer, I put in some kind of feel where I go off time to guys and kind of, stretch my legs a little bit, razzle dazzle a little bit, and then I kind of fade back, and then the guitar picks up, or even the bass, or the piano player. you're trading off doing these things, kind of feeling where you fit in the music. And maybe sometimes you're sitting here with a bunch of these awesome musicians, and it's like, well, I'm not the most. It's like, these are the guys who really can show off here. Like, maybe I just stay in my lane, play my role. Like, feeling things like that. That's kind of how that's the same thing with, like, different aspects of sports, feeling like where you need to be. Like, the more you play the quarterback position, the more you're going to kind of understand the timing of your drops. The more you play with your linemen, the more you're going to feel like, one, you're going to know their capability in protection, like how long they typically can keep you, like, completely protected. Maybe you have a guy that you know you can't trust. That's going to affect your sense. That's going to affect your feel. But you get used to that timing. You get used to how you drop back, how plays develop, how pass rush develops around you. But that takes being in it a lot to really hyper-develop that sense. One of the reasons Patrick Mahomes senses pressure so well, although a lot of people, his tape from college, he bailed so early. Yeah, he bailed early because, like, he kind of knew or had, like, this kind of knowledge that, like, I don't really trust my offensive line. And sometimes that was to his detriment. But he feels the way things are going around him, and he moves and he senses, and it's like, describing it's hard because, like, you watch it, it's like, it's hard to understand. But one of the reasons I believe that's a big thing for Mahomes, because it had to be. If you watched him at Texas Tech, it's like he had to anticipate his line breaking down because he knew it was going to, because they were usually overmatched by their competition talent-wise while he was there. He kept them in games, or kept them, like, they were putting up 35, 40 points on teams that, like, they probably had no business doing that on. This was, like, at the peak of Baylor. Oklahoma was, and Oklahoma was great at the time as well. Like, Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy had them during that run of just like, oh, they always have like 9, 10 wins. They're always at the top of the conference. They're playing these teams, and it's like, the defense can't do anything. Like, they're allowing 70, but oh my God, they put up 42 points. They put up 49 points. And it's because Mahomes was amazing. But he developed that feel because of playing with inferior competition. I think that's another thing with Josh Allen. It's like, now he's gotten used to playing with this better talent after, playing with a bunch of worse players. It's like, wow, okay, I can sit here longer, or I can actually attempt this throw because I know that guy can actually go get it, sort of stuff. So I'm interested to see and it's so much about situation, even with, like, quarterback, like, scouting. We do not put enough emphasis still on teams and on development situations. And that's funny because you see these people, it's like, yeah, but you get him in the NFL and, like, he's automatically going to be in a better situation. It's like, that's not true. There are college coaching staffs right now that coach circles around certain pro staffs. There's a reason coaches get fired. There's a reason coaches over time end up with reputations. It's because not everyone who gets somewhere is, like, that doesn't mean they're the worst, but they might be one of the worst at the level they get to. Anyone who tells me that Sam Darnold was put in a great developmental situation when they hired Adam Gase is foolish. Anyone who tells me that the Panthers firing Joe Brady and making the decisions they made, that Matt Rule made it offensive coordinator, like that those were good decisions or improved the situation there, are foolish. Josh Rosen wasn't really put in a great situation his first year. Does that mean he would have succeeded in another scenario? Maybe not. I thought out of those top 5 quarterbacks in 2018, I thought he had the biggest bust potential. I didn't like his mental. There was just something about him, his personality, and the way he presented himself. I didn't vibe with him. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's one of those kind of, once again, one of those kind of feel things. It's just like, there's just something, I don't trust this product. I don't think this is going to succeed. Whereas I thought Lamar Jackson, I had him as QB2. And I thought he had the highest upside, above Josh Allen, because of his running ability. His athleticism was ridiculous, and I thought people weren't selling his arm talent as good as it is. And his ability to make plays with his arm and from the pocket, I thought were being undervalued. Turned out I was right. It's nice to have those moments where it's like, yeah, I was right. I had Baker Mayfield number 1. There's the humility. Of course, I also had Darnold up there, which I had Darnold as QB3. I had him above Josh Allen. Allen clearly had a better ceiling, but I like Darnold. And when he got drafted, he was going to a coaching staff that was led by Todd Bowles. I think if they had just swapped out offensive coordinators, Todd Bowles wasn't the problem in New York at the time. It was a shame he got, in my opinion, that he got fired. Or at least fired for them to hire Adam Gase. But, and I haven't even talked about C.J. Stroud, who I've kind of gone up and down on this season. I came in, I'm like, okay, well, he's clearly quarterback 2 behind Young. There was a period of the year where I was watching Stroud's tape, and I'm like, man, I need to look at Young again, but man, I'm kind of loving what I'm seeing from Stroud, rolling out and nailing these throws, rolling both ways. Especially that Notre Dame game, he put on some really good tape. But I went and I watched all that again, of course. And I watched a lot of Bryce Young, of course. Bryce Young's QB1. To me, I've seen a lot of interesting comps. I've seen a more mobile Drew Brees with a better arm. If you could get that, that seems like the number 1 pick. I've seen a smaller Patrick Mahomes with maybe a little less arm talent. Okay, sign me up. That still sounds like the number 1 overall pick. What was the other comp I heard? Russell Wilson, but actually reads the entire field and terrified of throwing over the middle of the field. Sounds like a number 1 overall pick. I see it. Young's a playmaker. He scrambles to throw, even though he can run. And he's a really, really dangerous running threat. He's got speed and quickness. And he's not scared. But he does play the position like a point guard. Love the way he plays the position. Like, I mean, the guy's magic. I don't look at C.J. Stroud that way. Like, and I've seen some comps of, like, comparing C.J. Stroud to Joe Burrow. I think Young plays more like Burrow than Stroud does. Yeah, Stroud can extend some plays. And, like, he's athletic, but he kind of reminds me of, like, this is kind of one of the interesting things about Jared Goff. He's not sudden, but he's actually got some pretty good long speed for a quarterback. It takes him a minute to get there. Stroud gets there a little quicker, but that's kind of the player Stroud kind of reminds me more of, is like, well, really the player he reminds me the most of is Dak Prescott, although he's not quite as aggressive as Dak was with his feet when he was younger. Except he's kind of like an upgraded, like, 2.0 of, like, as a passer, supremely confident in his ball placement, his accuracy. He's got really good touch. Like, I think Stroud's a great prospect. I don't like people comping him to Joe Burrow because, like, I don't see that type of competitor. I don't see that type of person when I look at Stroud. That doesn't mean he can't be a great quarterback, though. But I was thinking like an upgrade, more athletic, upgraded Jared Goff. Jared Goff was a Pro Bowl quarterback this year. Jared Goff has led a team to a Super Bowl appearance. Jared Goff has played really great football at the NFL level. You could get a better version of that with better tools. There's a reason Jared Goff went number 1 overall, people. But I don't think Stroud's better than Bryce Young. I just don't. But he's clearly QB2 in this class. And I'd take him over Levis. I'd take him over Richardson. I'd probably have more fun taking Richardson, though. Like, Richardson is really that, like, the wild card swing. I actually think Levis... I really am not interested in Levis. Like, once again, I see that Jake Locker, Paxton Lynch type prospect. Like, if Paxton Lynch had played at Kentucky, he would have gone in the top 10, 15 picks. Probably. Because he would have been playing in the SEC. Or he wouldn't have gone that high anyway because maybe he would have been exposed in the SEC. But if he had played like he did at Memphis at, like, a Kentucky or at a Power 5 school, Paxton Lynch would have gone in the top, like, 10, 15 and been a massive bust. Which, I mean, he was still kind of, a bit of a bust. I mean, the Broncos, I believe, traded up for him. Which was a mistake. A big honking mistake. I still think there's going to be 4 quarterbacks drafted, and I think these 4 guys are going to go quickly in the first round. I say 4 quarterbacks in the first round. I still have Hendon Hooker number 5. I know he definitely has his issues. I don't love his footwork. He has a tendency to not step into throws, which causes overthrows. Give me a second. When your family doesn't know your schedule. Which I'm about to wrap this up anyway because I didn't want to go too long or past 9 o'clock. But I think Hooker's a good prospect. I think, his feet. When he's moving the pocket, I think when he's actually when he's got all day to throw, I think he's actually a worse quarterback than when he's got to kind of think about pressure a little bit. When he gets under pressure and he avoids it, his footwork's great and he steps into his throws and he's really good. I think it's actually when things are kind of easy, I think is actually when he struggles. He gets lazy with his footwork. He's a little too statuesque when there's just no pressure. He's got great athleticism. I don't know if he's going to be an NFL starter, but I actually feel better about his ability to be a serviceable player, a serviceable spot starting quarterback than even Will Levis. And I think he's got plenty of upside too, which once again, he's older. This is another thing that messes with his evaluation. He's going to be 25 this year. That's old for a rookie. But I think Kenny Pickett turned 24 this year. Maybe I'm wrong. Or he's turned 24 at some point since the start of the season. But he was in college a long time. But Hooker's a really good athlete. He's got a really good arm. And he's had some really, really, really good games where he was dialed in and he wasn't missing receivers. So, and I mean, every quarterback misses receivers. Everybody has overthrows. He sails balls too often. And I actually think that's the biggest thing that's, other than his age, I think, and the ACL tear, which I'm not worried about the ACL. The prognosis on that has been really good. All the talk about that's been that he's way ahead of schedule. But he is an older prospect. And you do wonder, as much improvement as he made under Heupel, can he continue that at the NFL level? How much more? Is he good enough to be a borderline starter now? Because if he isn't, because of his age, does he have the ability to improve and get there? And how long will that take? And how good can he get? So, but we've seen look at Geno Smith this year, in his early 30s. I think at 31. So, I mean, it does make you think yeah, I get the concerns about the age, but how much do I know about the player, his character, his work ethic, and what his development track's been like? But he's QB5 for me. And I think after that, I'd probably put Jake Haener as QB6. Haener's real, he's not big, but he rolls through progressions really well. He's really accurate, technically sound. I don't know if he'll be a starter, but to me, once again, he seems like a kind of guy who could be a career backup that you're glad to have on your team. To me, that seems like the baseline floor for him. So with that being said, that's kind of a little bit of an intro to draft season, draft talk. I will be back on. I'll probably be streaming at different times, so follow me on Twitter. Pay attention to my Twitter, 100K13, at 100K13. And maybe, if you like this, sub to Blind Eye Media. Turn the notification bell on to all so you get notified when I'm going to stream. And I'm probably going to try to start scheduling my streams out in advance so you get warnings. But if I stream tomorrow, it'll be probably early afternoon. And I might not because Wednesday's kind of tough. I just kind of wanted to start back today, and I just kind of had some stuff come up to where I could only do it at night. So, just kind of pay attention. I'm probably going to be streaming almost every day, Monday through Friday. But once again, if you subscribe and hit that notification bell, you'll know every time I go live. And you'll know when I'm lying about streaming every day and I miss a day because you won't get a notification. So, this has been BlindEyeLive. I am Hunter King, Blind Eye himself, and I hope you have a great night's sleep. Or, if you're like me and you're going to be up till 2 o'clock in the morning for reasons, or 4 o'clock in the morning for reasons, hope your work night goes well.